Welcome back to LPBW Update. We have breaking news that changes everything we thought we knew about the current state of Roloff Farms. Forget the land disputes, forget the endless wedding drama. We have uncovered a potential financial scandal brewing right under Matt Roloff's nose that threatens to destroy the integrity of pumpkin season forever. Reports are pouring into our investigation desk about a shadow economy operating on the farm, involving allegations of thousands of dollars in untraceable cash, secret demands, and a sudden, shocking mass exodus of the vendors you know and love. Who is allegedly orchestrating this black market scheme? The finger of suspicion is pointing directly at Caryn Chandler. Is she running a side hustle that is bleeding the farm's reputation dry? We have exclusive theories and deep dive insider details that Matt Roloff absolutely does not want you to hear. This is the Roloff Farms cash envelope scandal exposed. Before we dive into the explosive allegations that have just surfaced, we need to set the stage with a crucial update just coming across our desk regarding the farm's hierarchy. Sources close to production have long whispered that Caryn Chandler's influence over the farm's day-to-day finances has grown exponentially in the last 18 months. While the television show focuses on Matt's grand construction ideas, the leading theory among insiders is that Caryn has quietly maneuvered herself into the ultimate position of gatekeeper. Specifically, we are hearing urgent reports that for the upcoming critical pumpkin season, Caryn was granted total, unsupervised control over vendor relations. Now, this may sound bureaucratic, but pumpkin season is a multi-million-dollar operation. The vendors, the food trucks, the artisan stalls, the famous popcorn stands, are the lifeblood of that October revenue and the guest experience. Controlling them means controlling access to a massive, captive audience. And according to startling new information, that power immediately went to her head, creating a crisis that the family is desperately trying to keep under wraps. This is where the situation turns dark. Our independent investigation into the upcoming season preparations revealed a shocking discrepancy. We started cross-referencing the usual reliable vendor list from previous successful years with the proposed map for this upcoming autumn, and the holes were glaring. Where were the fan favorites? Where was that specific kettle corn stall that has been a staple near the entrance for 15 years? According to insider accounts, Amy Roloff was the first person to notice something was deeply rotten. We are told that Amy, who is still deeply connected to the local business community she helped build over decades, reached out to one of her oldest vendor contacts just to say hello and check in on their placement. The alleged response she received changed everything. The vendor supposedly texted back something to the effect of, "We're out, Amy. We can't do it this year. The new fees are astronomical. We can't survive with these demands." This text message sent shockwaves through the periphery of the family. When these concerns about vendor attrition were allegedly brought to Matt Roloff's attention, his response was typical corporate deflection. Our sources say Matt claimed overhead is up due to global inflation, and that stall prices had to rise across the board to cover insurance and staffing. But here's where our exclusive theory takes shape based on financial analysis. We ran the numbers. Standard adjustments for inflation do not explain why long-term, profitable small businesses with low overhead would abandon the biggest event of the year on such short notice. Matt's explanation simply didn't pass the smell test. Something else, something hidden, was pushing these loyal partners out the door. The theory we are investigating suggests that Matt wasn't necessarily lying, he was just completely ignorant of the reality on the ground. He may have authorized raising the official farm rent by 10 or 15%, which is standard, but he allegedly had zero idea about the secondary market being established behind his back by his own partner. The exodus wasn't about standard rent, it was about an alleged shakedown. We believe Amy realized sooner than anyone that if these core vendors were leaving, the heart and soul of pumpkin season would die, and the farm's sterling reputation in the local Oregon business community would be shattered permanently. She needed proof before taking this to Matt, who was notoriously defensive of Caryn. What happened next, according to highly confidential sources who spoke on condition of anonymity, was nothing short of a civilian sting operation designed to catch the culprit red-handed. What you are about to learn involves secret meetings, demands for untraceable currency, and a betrayal of trust that stunned even the most cynical observers of Roloff family dynamics. We are now entering the most critical phase of this investigation, a chapter we are calling the vendor sting. According to the timeline we have reconstructed from leaked information and insider whispers, Amy Roloff realized that a simple confrontation would not work. If she walked into the farmhouse and accused Caryn of extortion based on hearsay or a few angry text messages, Matt would undoubtedly dismiss it as jealousy or an attempt to undermine his new management structure. Amy needed undeniable, hard evidence. She needed to catch the operation in real time. Our sources indicate that Amy enlisted the help of a trusted associate, someone completely unknown to the Roloff inner circle, but well-versed in the hospitality industry. This individual, whom we will refer to as the proxy, was tasked with a high-stakes mission: pose as an eager, high-end artisan baker looking to secure a last-minute premium booth for the upcoming pumpkin season. The goal was simple but dangerous: get Caryn Chandler in a room, negotiate a contract, and see if the alleged pay-to-play demand surfaced. The setup was meticulous. The proxy allegedly reached out to the farm's official vendor email, which was now routed directly to Caryn's personal device, bypassing the general office staff. The response was almost immediate, which in itself was a red flag. Usually the farm is booked solid months in advance, but according to the theory, spots were miraculously available for the right price. A meeting was scheduled, not in the main farm office where cameras and other employees might witness the transaction, but allegedly in a private, secondary location, a quiet corner of a local coffee shop in Hillsborough, or perhaps, as some darker rumors suggest, inside Caryn's personal vehicle parked on the edge of the property. The atmosphere was described as tense, but professionally cordial. The proxy went in wired, with a recording app running silently on a smartphone placed casually on the table. This is the moment where the cash envelope theory moves from speculation to potential reality. According to the transcript details that have leaked to our investigation team, Caryn began the meeting with the standard pitch. She talked about foot traffic, the massive exposure of the TV show, and the Roloff magic. She presented the official contract, and the numbers looked standard: a booth fee of $500 payable to Roloff Farms, Inc. This was the clean money, the money that would go into the books, be taxed, and show up on the profit and loss statements that Matt reviews. But then, the tone shifted. Our sources claim that after the official paperwork was glanced over, Caryn leaned in and lowered her voice. This is the alleged pivot point where the scheme is revealed. She reportedly told the proxy that the $500 fee only guaranteed a spot on the far periphery of the farm, near the parking overflow, a location known as a dead zone for vendors, where foot traffic is minimal and sales are dismal. If the proxy wanted a Tier 1 location, near the Golden Pass entrance or the main pumpkin patch where the cameras film, that would require a different arrangement. This is where the term consulting fee was allegedly introduced. Caryn reportedly explained that managing the prime real estate required extra logistical coordination that she handled personally, outside of the farm's general administrative scope. She allegedly slid a piece of paper across the table with a number written on it: $1,000. But here is the kicker, the detail that makes this a potential legal firestorm. She supposedly specified that this fee was not to be written as a check to the farm. It was to be paid in cash, placed in a sealed envelope, and handed directly to her prior to setup day. The justification offered was slick and practiced. She allegedly claimed this was to expedite the permit process and cover after-hours site management, phrasing it as a VIP service rather than a bribe. But the requirement for cash and the specific instruction to keep this transaction separate from the official farm ledger screams of a black market operation. The recording allegedly captures the most damning exchange of all. When the proxy hesitated, feigning concern about the cost and asking if they could just add it to the check for the farm so it could be written off as a business expense, Caryn's demeanor reportedly hardened. The audio allegedly captures her saying something to the effect of, This is a private arrangement for placement priority. If we run it through the main books, it gets tied up in corporate red tape and Matt gets involved in the minutia, which slows everything down. Matt trusts me to handle the logistics. He doesn't need to be bothered with the nickel and dime details of booth placement. If you want the spot, this is how we do it this year. It's strictly between us. That phrase, "don't bother Matt," is the smoking gun. It suggests a deliberate effort to insulate the farm's owner from the financial reality of his own event. It implies that Matt Roloff, the man who prides himself on knowing every square inch of his property, is being actively deceived by the person closest to him. The proxy agreed to the terms in principle to end the meeting, promising to return with the cash the following day. As soon as they were clear of the meeting spot, the recording was saved, backed up, and sent directly to Amy Roloff. When Amy listened to that audio file, the reaction was described as a mix of vindication and horror. Vindication because her gut instinct about the new regime was correct. Horror because the scale of the deception was larger than she imagined. If Caryn was demanding $1,000 under the table from just one vendor, and there are 30 or 40 prime spots on the farm, do the math. We are talking about tens of thousands of dollars in potential untaxed revenue being diverted away from the farm and into a private pocket. This wasn't just skimming. This was, according to our theory, a full-blown shadow economy operating under the guise of vendor relations. The implications were staggering. It explained why the old vendors left. They refused to pay the bribe. It explained why the new map looked so chaotic. Spots were being awarded based on who paid the cash, not who had the best product or the longest history. The integrity of the pumpkin season was being sold off to the highest bidder. Amy sat in her kitchen playing the audio clip over and over, specifically the part where Caryn invoked Matt's name to silence the vendor. Matt doesn't need to be bothered. It was the ultimate betrayal of the partnership, however fractured that partnership might be. But Amy knew that possessing the tape was only half the battle. The next step was the confrontation, and this is where the narrative becomes incredibly volatile. Amy couldn't just email the file to Matt. He might delete it, ignore it, or worse, Caryn might intercept it before he ever saw it. This had to be done in person, eye to eye, with no room for escape or denial. Amy had to engineer a situation where Matt was isolated, away from Caryn's hovering presence, and forced to listen to the truth about the woman running his business. The plan was set for a logistics meeting at the big house, a meeting Amy requested under the pretense of discussing the kids' involvement in the season. Matt agreed, likely expecting another lecture about scheduling or family time. He had no idea he was walking into an ambush that would shatter his trust in his vendor relations manager. As Amy drove over to the farm, the USB drive burning a hole in her pocket, the stakes couldn't have been higher. If she was wrong, or if Matt chose to side with Caryn despite the evidence, it would permanently sever her ability to protect the farm's legacy. But if she was right, and if Matt reacted the way she hoped he would, it would trigger a purge that would rock the foundations of Roloff Farms. The drive up the long dirt driveway felt different this time. It wasn't just a visit to the ex-husband, it was a rescue mission for the family business. She pulled up, saw Matt's mule parked outside, and took a deep breath. The sting was over. The confrontation was about to begin. And as we will reveal in the next segment, the fallout from this meeting would be more explosive than anyone could have predicted. Matt Roloff thinks he has seen it all, but he has never heard a recording quite like this. The silence that fell over the room when Amy pressed play is a moment that will go down in Roloff history. This is the moment that changes the trajectory of the entire season. We are taking you inside the walls of the main farmhouse into the chaotic, paper-strewn office where Matt Roloff rules his empire. According to our insider timeline, Amy walked in with a singular purpose. The atmosphere was reportedly icy from the start. Matt, buried under blueprints for a new barn structure, barely looked up, expecting a routine lecture about holiday schedules or grandkid visitation rights. He had no idea he was about to be hit with a forensic evidence bomb. Amy didn't waste time with pleasantries. Our sources describe her demeanor as eerily calm, the calm of someone who holds all the cards. She simply placed her phone on the desk, right on top of his precious blueprints, and said 4 words. "You need to listen." She hit play. The audio from the coffee shop filled the room. At first, Matt seemed confused, squinting at the device as the muffled sounds of a cafe background gave way to Caryn's distinct voice. He recognized the pitch. He recognized the sales tactic. But then came the pivot. When the voice on the recording demanded the consulting fee in cash and explicitly instructed the vendor to keep the transaction hidden from Matt to avoid red tape, the color reportedly drained from Matt Roloff's face. This wasn't just a business error. This was a coup. The man who prides himself on being the ultimate micromanager, the man who needs to know where every screw and nail is located, was hearing indisputable proof that he was being bypassed, managed, and financially undercut by his own partner. The line, "Matt doesn't need to be bothered," hung in the air like toxic smoke. For a long minute, there was absolute silence. The theory circulating among production insiders is that Matt's initial instinct was denial. He wanted to believe it was taken out of context, that perhaps this was a misunderstood deposit for legitimate farm improvements. But the math didn't lie, and neither did the secrecy. Amy, sensing his hesitation, allegedly delivered the final blow. She pulled out the spreadsheet she had compiled, the list of the 20-year veteran vendors who had mysteriously quit, juxtaposed with the estimated revenue loss. "She isn't just taking money, Matt," Amy reportedly said. "She is burning bridges that took us 30 years to build. These people aren't leaving because of inflation. They are leaving because they refuse to be shaken down." The reality of the situation crashed down on him. This was embezzlement, disguised as efficiency. What happened next was a confrontation that the cameras were likely forbidden from filming, but the echoes of which were felt throughout the entire production. Matt summoned Caryn to the office immediately. The narrative we have pieced together suggests a scene of high drama. When confronted with the recording, Caryn's reaction was not an apology, but a frantic attempt at a spin. Sources suggest she attempted to frame the cash envelopes not as personal kickbacks, but as an off-the-books fundraising initiative or a rainy day fund for vendor appreciation parties and sudden farm repairs that couldn't wait for corporate check approval. She claimed she was trying to be proactive and agile, using corporate buzzwords to mask the reality of the unrecorded cash. She insisted she was going to surprise Matt with the extra funds at the end of the season, but the surprise defense fell flat. No legitimate business operates on secret cash hidden in envelopes to avoid the owner's oversight. Matt, humiliated that his ex-wife had to be the one to save his business from his girlfriend, was forced to make a hard executive decision. He couldn't fire Caryn. Their personal lives are too entangled, and the optics of a breakup right before pumpkin season would be a PR nightmare. But he had to neuter her power. In a move that reportedly caused massive friction in their relationship, Matt stripped Caryn of all vendor relations responsibilities, effective immediately. The keys to the vendor office were turned over. The map she had drawn up, based on who paid the bribes, was scrapped. This was the opening Amy needed. In a triumphant turn of events, Amy Roloff stepped back into the breach. She didn't do it for Matt, and she didn't do it for the glory. She did it for the legacy of the farm. With only weeks to go before opening day, Amy hit the phones. She called the kettle corn guy. She called the artisan soap makers. She called the taco truck owners who had been part of the Roloff family for a decade. She apologized on behalf of the farm without explicitly throwing Caryn under the bus, though the subtext was clear, and offered them their old spots back at the original fair rates. She promised them that the new fees were a clerical error that had been corrected. The response was overwhelming. Because of the trust Amy had banked over decades of honest business dealings, the vendors agreed to return. The cash envelope scandal was quietly buried. The money Caryn had already collected was reportedly quietly returned or reallocated to proper farm accounts to avoid legal scrutiny, and the vendor map was restored to its original, logical layout. When the gates opened for pumpkin season that October, the fans saw a bustling, happy marketplace, completely unaware of the civil war that had nearly destroyed it weeks prior. But if you looked closely, you could see the shift in power. Amy walked through the vendor village like a queen greeting her subjects, receiving hugs and free samples from relieved business owners. Caryn was relegated to the background, smiling tightly for the cameras, but kept strictly away from the cash boxes and vendor contracts. The season was saved, and the revenue records were broken, but the dynamic at Roloff Farms had fundamentally shifted. Matt now knew that his control was an illusion, and that without Amy's intervention, he would have presided over the collapse of the farm's most profitable month. The cash envelope scandal remains one of the most explosive chapters in the farm's history, a testament to the fact that in the world of reality TV, the real drama often happens when the cameras stop rolling and the microphones are supposedly off. The trust between Matt and Caryn took a hit that some insiders say has never fully healed. A crack in the foundation that started with a secret demand for $1,000 in a coffee shop. Stealing from the pumpkin patch to line your own pockets? That is a new low, even for the high-stakes world of reality TV drama. We have to ask the question that everyone is thinking. If Amy hadn't caught this, how much money would have disappeared? And more importantly, does a fundraising excuse ever justify taking secret cash behind the boss's back? We want to hear from you. Do you think Matt went too soft on Caryn by keeping her on the farm? Should Amy have taken that recording to the police and filed for extortion? Or was this just a misunderstood business tactic gone wrong? Let us know in the comments below if you would trust Caryn with a lemonade stand, let alone a multi-million-dollar pumpkin empire. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because as we just proved, the truth about Roloff Farms is always stranger than the script. We'll see you in the next update.